First story. Entitled SIL decided she would be a surrogate for me and my husband, even though we don't want kids. My husband told her it's disgusting for him to have a baby with his sister. Still, she didn't stop harassing us, so we cut ties and filed for a restraining order. Now that the restraining order has expired, she physically assaulted me, forced me to eat allergic food, and exposed my husband to viruses. Backstory. I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It is a genetic, incurable connective tissue disorder. While I don't have the most deadly symptoms of the illness, I do have some pretty rough ones, including joint dislocations under mild stress, chronic pain, and heart and gastrointestinal problems. Basically, it's not something I would wish on someone else. Because of this, I can't safely have children. There is a very real danger of a uterine rupture during pregnancy. There is also a high chance that whatever child I have inherits this condition. It's likely they could be even worse off than I am. My husband also has some milder chronic health issues that could be inherited. So my husband and I came to the difficult, but necessary decision not to have children biologically. We're honestly at a point where we don't know if we want children at all. We are both very willing and open to adoption. But having children with both of us being ill might not be the most responsible decision. My whole family was fine with this. They were even proud of us for being responsible. His parents were disappointed, but in a sane, understandable way, and they have been supportive of our decision overall. His older sister lost her mind. Now, she didn't fly off the handle and start screaming at us. No, that would be too obvious and normal an anger reaction from her. She planned. The first step of her plan was to pretend nothing was wrong and continue to talk about the issue as if it didn't exist. She kept insisting on talking about when you two have a kid or when ReservoirKat is pregnant. We were very uncomfortable with it, but we didn't raise hell for a bit about it, just in case she misunderstood. We finally got tired of it, and my husband explained it again to her in plain terms. We aren't having kids. She took this as a challenge. Not getting pregnant doesn't mean not having kids. Now did she go the annoying yet sensible route and start talking about if we decided to adopt? Of course not. She brought me brochures about surrogacy and said she was going to carry our baby. Not offering. Not that it was something to consider. That she was 100% going to do it. After I picked my jaw up off the floor, I cautiously thanked her for her concern, but explained again that the risk of me having a child with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome wasn't worth the risk to me. I don't want to bring a child into the world who lives with the same pain, symptoms, and difficulties that I do, or worse. Did she stop? Of course not. She went behind my back to my husband, her brother, who lost his SHT. He was completely grossed out by the idea of his sister being pregnant with our child. And he told her how disgusted he was that she kept forcing this idea of us having children on me. But she doesn't stop. Every time we've been around her since then, she waits for me to go to the bathroom or something, and she brings it up to him again. I wouldn't even trust her to babysit our hypothetical child, let alone be pregnant with it. Back when we were considering having kids despite the obstacles, we mentioned potential boy names we had picked out, and she fake vomited and said, "Boys are the worst babies, you should have a girl." But she has 2 sons. I'm sick and tired of her behavior, and I just wanted to vent really quickly about it. My husband says that if she does it one more time, we're cutting her out of our lives, and I hope he means it. Edit. My husband reminded me that she flipped the F out one time. We suggested that if we adopted, we might do so transracially, basically. Us as a white couple adopting a child of color. So just to give a real look at what a piece of work she is. Update. She showed up at our house, so I wanted to give you all an update on this craziness. My husband's sister is furious that I can't have biological children and won't let her be our surrogate. She keeps bringing it up to my husband behind my back and genuinely freaking both of us out. Well, a few days ago, we went to lunch with her and very logically confronted her with our concerns. At first, everything seems okay. She's nodding at the right times, saying the right things, and eventually she even says she's sorry, not very convincingly, but in the way we expect of her. So let's relax a little. Maybe we blew her craziness out of proportion and we're just misjudging her. Lol, no. During lunch, she starts insulting my husband for our taste in movies. We like horror films. She hates them, insulting his hair, insulting my clothing choice. Her exact words were, "You don't have enough boobs for that shirt," and generally being a DCK. The real cake topper to all this was her grabbing my hands and saying, "It's not fair that you can't have kids." And I was like, "Awa, that's a sweet sentiment." And then she said, "Because I wanted to see how fat you get so badly." Y'all. What the F? We finish our food and cut out hanging out with her early because she's acting totally uncalled for. We go home and, for a few days, have blessed radio silence from her. Until last night. Last night, she showed up at our house at 9 at night, demanding to come in so she could try to play video games and be more understanding of why you like that stupid SHT so much you'd get a tattoo of it. My husband got a Borderlands vault symbol tattoo a few weeks ago. Now, you have to understand. I had a very bad day yesterday. My pain levels from the Ehlers-Danlos were really high. My shoulder is still not entirely in the socket correctly, and I made very painful clicks all day yesterday whenever I moved it. My ankles were swollen. My knee kept clicking out of place. The rib that dislocated 5 years ago and has never settled right is sore. And on top of everything else, I had cramps. I had not properly built my ladder to happiness yesterday, despite a combination of doing nothing but surfing the internet and eating copious amounts of chocolate. For the first time in my entire marriage, I lost it on my sister-in-law. I never cursed at her, but I told her she was crazy for thinking I was going to let anyone into my house this late without any announcement. I told her that unless she was here to apologize for how she'd been treating both of us, she could leave. My husband echoed my sentiment and asked her what she thought this would accomplish. She started fake crying and said that she just has nobody. She lives with her husband, their 2 kids, and her and my husband's parents. She also has contact with one of the 2 other insane siblings that we are completely in love with. Meanwhile, my husband and I live with our 3 cats. That's it. But because we managed not to scare all our friends off by being crazy and bitter, we're the bad guys. Eventually, we tell her that if she keeps shrieking, one of the neighbors will call the cops on her, and she pouts and starts talking at an acceptable volume. She keeps talking to my husband, saying I've changed him from a doormat to a real boy, and that's why she's really angry, and that he always picks me over her, the way it should be, and a bunch of other SHT about how terrible I am. Finally, I go upstairs and let them argue it out. A few minutes later, she leaves, and my husband comes upstairs and says that unless something major happens like their mom is in the hospital, for example, we're done with her. I'm relieved, but at the same time, I don't believe for 1 second that she's done with us. She's never done anything like this before. This is the first time she's been to our house since we bought it. Something snapped, and now I'm worried. We were thinking of getting cameras because of our long battle with the HOA, which you can read about on Ref HOA, but now we may need them for her. At least, I have my husband standing up for us. He used to let her walk all over him. That's why she's really pissed, I think, because she doesn't have her little puppet anymore. In the comments section. Winston Dresden. OP, I think you should go ahead and use the cameras, plus any other safety precautions you can think of. Your SIL has gone from annoying to near psychotic in a fairly short time. I suspect she is building toward a breakdown of some sort, and a possible 5F150 may be pending. Go ahead and get a plan in place. Your husband might talk with her husband about his concerns for her mental health, which is deteriorating rapidly. Maybe her husband can get her into treatment before the emergency services have to be called. OP. We are somewhat limited by our HOA from hell. We are getting cameras for our front and back windows, but they have to be inside the house. It's mostly because I think our crazy HOA president is snooping our packages. We collect a variety of things like records and Funko Pops. But this is highly suspicious behavior, apparently. But now we can add his crazy sister to the list of reasons. We already have a security system in place that keeps us armed all the time. The thing is that her husband has completely checked out. They're still together, but they divorced once, got married again, and now it looks like they might separate again because they can't stand each other. It's awful to see, but he genuinely would not give a SHT that she's doing this, except for the fear she could get arrested and actually make him responsible for their children for once. The best bet would be their parents, but since they live in her house, it's difficult for them to reason with her without the threat of being homeless again. Their son, the one we are NC with, completely sold their home out from under them randomly one day, and they had no choice but to move in with her because we have no room. And well, the crazy does come from somewhere. It's just such a frustrating situation. Update. Sister-in-law has lost her mind again. Hi y'all. Long time, no talk. This incident happened last month, but I've been so busy and sick that I never wrote it up until now. So quick backstory. I can't have kids for medical reasons. I mean, I could, but there's a not insignificant chance of my dying, and there's a 50% chance my child will be disabled like me. So my husband and I decided not to have children. He took permanent measures recently to make sure we don't have kids. My family knows and approves. His does not, for reasons that will become clear. His family knows I can't have kids, so his sister's grand decision was that she would be our surrogate, disregarding the whole genetic disability thing. She didn't ask us, and when we refused, she kept pushing it until one night, she showed up at our house to yell at us. For a long time, there was radio silence. It was amazing. Anyway, we were one day out in the neighborhood after work, minding our own business at Michael's craft store. And who do we run into but SIL? At first, she's all smiles, completely ignoring the past several months of us profoundly ignoring her. She's talking to her brother, completely ignoring me, until finally she takes one good, hard look at my stomach. Important note: I am on a SHT ton of medication. One of the side effects of many of them is weight gain. She squeals loudly and declares to the entire holiday decor department, "You're pregnant, oh my God." She then chokes me in a very painful, fully body bear hug, with my arms awkwardly pressed into my sides. People around them are looking, vaguely smiling, at the happy news. Finally, she let me go, and I managed to choke out, "I'm not pregnant. I just gained some weight." I'm clearly embarrassed. The people near us are scattering quickly. I'm clearly embarrassed as well. And SIL is clearly rebooting her entire brain system. "You're not pregnant." "I can't get pregnant, SIL. We've been over this." "Oh, well, my offer still stands." It was then that my husband made the decision to whisper to her about his procedure, and the fact that, no, her offer didn't stand. We are not having children. Unless she forges some adoption papers and somehow manages to get us a baby without us ever appearing in court, we ain't having kids. Y'all. She flipped SHT in Michael's. She started screaming at him about how we ruined the family, how I was a family wrecker, how I lied to my husband before we got married about wanting kids. I didn't lie, things just change. And she did this all while taking Halloween decorations off the racks and hurling them at me. Some of them end up breaking on the ground, and one caught me in the shoulder, one of those candelabra things. Loss prevention security arrived and asked her to leave, threatening her with the cops if she didn't. Thankfully, she seemed to gain a modicum of sanity for a moment and stomped off, leaving us embarrassed and me crying. Husband freely gave Michael's employees SIL's information, and they ended up giving us a gift card for our clear distress, which they totally didn't have to do. Anyway, I have no idea if SIL had to pay for the SHT she broke or threw, but I do know she is now banned from Michael's. I also got a restraining order. I heard from their parents that the meltdown over that was quite epic. We haven't heard anything from her since, except that she's stealing my parents-in-law's mail, including the gift cards we sent for their birthdays. TLDR. I finally gained weight, which my SIL has mocked me for in the past. She thinks I'm pregnant and throws a huge, violent tantrum at the local Michael's when she finds out I'm not, and that we never will be with a child. Update. Crazy SIL assaults me and exposes us to coronavirus. I posted here a very long time ago talking about my difficult sister-in-law and her push for my husband and me to have children despite our chronic health issues and lack of desire for children. We cut off contact with her after she had what turned out to be a bipolar episode of some sort and attacked me in a store. We got a restraining order, and it expired. Foolishly, we decided to end our no contact after about a year. For a good while, she behaved better. We still dealt with her passive, aggressive behavior, but we do love seeing our nephews. My mother-in-law and stepfather-in-law also live with SIL, her husband, and their children, so it made things less tense when we saw them. Earlier this month, it was my husband's 32nd birthday. I honestly have to say it was one of the worst celebrations of anything I have experienced. For starters, I asked about cake. I am not a professional baker, but I am a very good baker. My husband wanted a specific type of cake, and so I asked SIL if she wanted to either help me buy ingredients or if there was a separate cake she and her kids wanted. She told me she'd take care of the cake. I asked my husband what he preferred, and he said to just let her get the cake. SIL also told us that she'd buy the food to grill out. Hamburgers, hot dogs, etc. It sounds good to us. The day of my husband's birthday, we get a mysterious package we did not order. From a bakery. In New Jersey. We live in Tennessee. At first, we assume it's from my father-in-law, who lives in New York. But it would be very odd as he is recovering from having COVID and had already sent my husband an emailed gift card for his birthday. His sister calls us around that time and tells us that's the cake she ordered. We're weirded out that she didn't warn us that she was sending a refrigerated cake. We could have left it on the porch to melt since the deliverer didn't knock. We went over to her house that evening with the cake. No grilling, only pizza. Okay, that's fine. But all of the pizza has onions or mushrooms, both of which I am highly allergic to, which she knows. And she didn't order anything I could eat. At all. My 15-year-old nephew literally had to take pity on me and make me toaster waffles. Husband is unhappy. But so much weird stuff is going on that neither of us feel comfortable confronting her about this. His parents also said nothing, because they were refusing to come within 10 feet of everyone due to social distancing. Weird. But okay. Then it starts getting worse. My SIL spends the night berating her sons for anything and everything. The older nephew cut the pizza wrong. The younger nephew dropped his soda. Everything was wrong. We finally ate the cake, and it was terrible. It was genuinely disgusting, and she could tell we didn't like it, which made her freak out and complain about how much she spent on it, over $100 before shipping, and how he would like it because it was his only present from her. That obviously hurt his feelings, because while he's okay with not getting a present, her complete dismissal of his feelings over hers is a huge hallmark of their relationship. Eventually, I got enough of her mistreating my husband and my nephews and told her, quite simply, to calm down and treat them with more respect. I believe my exact words were, "Would you be happy to be spoken to like that?" She flips on me, kicks us out of the house, and as we are leaving, she pulls my cane out from under me and pushes me off of a raised porch into her rose bush. Her thorned rose bush. I start crying and freaking out from the pain and being stuck. My husband is trying really hard to get me out. Everything is a blur. We run to the car once I'm free and leave. We went home instead of the ER because we had been recently and could not afford to go again, and most of the wounds were shallow. Then she calls us the next morning and tells me her husband has been exposed to COVID, which they knew about for several days. But she didn't tell us. Thankfully, we tested negative, but considering all my health issues and the fact that my husband has a deformed lung, we could have literally died from it if we got it. I'm so done, you guys. TLDR. SIL attacks me at my husband's birthday party and also knowingly exposes us to COVID. Second story. My entitled parents abused me and pushed me to commit self-harm until I moved out. Now my sister has contacted me, saying they are treating her the same as me. Hi, this is going to be a long one. I am not looking for someone to tell me what to do, just an outsider's perspective, as this has all been so normalized. My emotional and psychological abuse and neglect started when I was 15. I was diagnosed with anorexia, and prior to me reaching out for help at school, no one in my family did anything to help me. I was visibly unwell, and they let me starve myself to the point of being 2 weeks off death. Anyway, they were lovely when I first got ill. They both took time off work and supported me. I have very fond memories of that period. Despite how awful the illness was, things started to gradually change, maybe 3 months into my recovery. The timeline is a mess from here onwards because of trauma. My parents were extremely controlling with my treatment and therapy. They took me out of Cam's family therapy. They would start me off by seeing a therapist, and then a few months later, they would cancel them behind my back. All for various reasons, such as that they weren't helping, they were using the wrong methods, and so on. This destroyed me every time, as I was desperate to get help and recover. It sent me on a spiral of depression and self-harming thoughts the fourth time they did this. I was absolute hell. My parents were very controlling with the therapists themselves. They often started to see how much my parents were harming me. My mom became obsessed with researching my illness and how to get me better, to the extent that she would scream at me. No one can get me better aside from her. If I want to get better, I need to do as she says. And if I do what therapists, GPS, and healthcare professionals say, I'll never get fully better and I'll become stuck. This was so confusing, infuriating, and scary for me. My parents would never tell me they were proud of me, never provide loving, warm support, and always use threats. If I didn't eat a certain thing, I wasn't allowed to go to school or see my friends. I was scared, angry, and exhausted by them. They absolutely broke me more than the illness ever did. My mom became very emotionally unstable. We would have huge arguments over my illness and treatment. She would cry, slam doors, lock herself away, wail so loudly, and tell me things like she was just trying her best. If I confronted her about how she was treating me, she would tell me I was being mean, accusing her of things, attacking her, and a whole host of other things that would make me feel so guilty and like I was to blame for her emotional suffering. She would leave the house with the car and not tell me where she'd gone. The worst was when we had an argument, and she went off to the kitchen and tried to cut her wrists with a kitchen knife. Then tried to deny it and told me she did it because she saw me doing self-harm and thought it would help. After saying awful stuff, She would tell me that she didn't mean it and didn't know what to say, deflecting the blame because she was emotional. My parents told me they had to remortgage the house to pay for my treatment, which was a lie. I was banned from certain foods and anything to do with food preparation way after it was appropriate for me. They made me sign a contract before I left for university on how my weight would be maintained. They obsessed over my weight to an unhealthy extent. They had a load of messed up opinions on anorexia and how to treat me. They believed them, and only they could fix me. I have never been able to see a dietitian. I was left for months with no treatment or support, which made me self-harming, and they were fully aware of this. When I told my mom I was self-harming after a hospital appointment, her reaction was that I would kill us both and then drive into speeding traffic. Nothing happened, but I thought I was going to die. She drove dangerously with me in the car often, and did once with my friend in the car as well. It was horrible. My mom also followed me and stalked me because she was worried about me. There is likely more, but this gives a general view of my abuse and neglect. My mom was the face of it, but my dad stood by her and did all the stuff with the therapy. 2 weeks ago, my older sister messaged me because mom was crying and sobbing and had locked herself in the bathroom, doing exactly what she did to me as a teenager. My sister has recently been diagnosed with autism and has other traumas she is dealing with. She told me that our dad had been physically violent with her and had run away in 2021. I was told she had run off to go on vacation and that she was being selfish. My dad has pushed her, smashed a plate of toast she made out of her hand, dragged her up the stairs by her elbows, and she got carpet burns all up her back from it, slammed doors, and said awful stuff to her. What? This is all she has told me, but I know there is more that happened. This had been going on for years prior to 2021. I saw my sister get physically removed from the house once. She was challenging, but this all feels so wrong. My sister and I both have PTSD and can't go home because of it. I want to cut my mom out of my life, but I am struggling with my dad. We get along so well when I do see him. I have a lot of nice memories with him, and we are pretty close. The thought of no contact with him upsets me way more than mom. My relationship with mom is dead. There's nothing that can be done, and she can't change. My dad feels different, though. What are your thoughts on this situation? Literally, any response will mean the world. Thank you so much. Update in r/estranged adult child. I had no contact with my parents in February this year. I did so because of PTSD, emotional and psychological abuse, and neglect. I still struggle to accept that what they did was bad. But it is a journey, and I reached a breaking point and had to cut them out. I left it as, if you get help, and when I have healed, we can reconnect. Anyway, I am struggling a lot with grief today and this past week. It has been an on and off thing, but it has been one of the main emotions. I am young, just 20, and in the part of life when parents still play a pretty big role in your life. It is the little things I miss. I miss texting them my news, telling them what has been going on in my life, and just sharing things with them. That's the main thing, knowing they know nothing about what is happening in my life. It is so hard, and I just want to hug my dad, but I know if I were to, I would just feel so anxious and uncomfortable. I am missing and wanting something that isn't really there. How can I process this grief and heal from it? I do have a therapist, and I talk about it with them and my partner, and I am also writing an unsent letter. What has helped others in this situation? Third story. My pregnant sister couldn't stop using drugs, and I'm done giving her second chances. So I filed for divorce, took my daughter, asked her to abort the baby, and left. Now she is threatening to have the baby and use drugs on it if I don't reconcile. Hi. My wife is addicted to heroin. I said it. I created this account just to be able to admit this somewhere. I have a hard time saying it, even though I've been to many Nar-Anon meetings. I used to be able to say it easily, back when I was seething with anger toward her the first time we did this song and dance. I have a regular Reddit account that I sometimes post in a parenting sub on, and I don't really want this tied to my account. Maybe I will post about it there when I'm ready. But this isn't something I readily share or am ready to share. I thought I was past having to talk about this all the time or think about it every single day. When I went through this with her for the first time, there was a period where I probably only really talked to other loved ones of addicts, because they were the only people who could understand what I was going through. I'm sorry to say I've lost touch with all of them. I've just been sitting here on my couch crying for 15 minutes. I felt like she'd been off for the past few days. She fell asleep early tonight, so I took the opportunity to search the house. I found her supplies hidden in various places. I already knew, but I needed the proof. So I tore the house apart until I found proof. She strategically placed the items in different places, not all together. I feel oddly vindicated, since she kept assuring me she hadn't taken anything. It starts to make you feel crazy, in a weird way. I wanted to find proof, just so I wouldn't feel so crazy anymore. On the other hand, I didn't want to find anything. She has a long history of drug use, mainly pain medications and heroin. It started when she was a teenager, and was prescribed pain medications after a bad injury. She was a normal girl then, not into anything bad or illegal, not hanging around with people who did drugs, not somebody you'd think would wind up a heroin addict by the time she got to college. She got hurt playing a high school sport. She got addicted and started buying pills on the street until they became too expensive, and she turned to heroin. I didn't know her then. I met her when she was 26, and she'd been clean for only about 6 months. She'd been clean off and on for years, but only for short times. She shouldn't have been dating me, or anyone for that matter, since they generally advise not dating anyone for a year when you're in recovery. I've never been a drug user. I knew very little about this world before meeting her. She didn't tell me about it until we'd been dating for, probably, a month or so. It was a huge shock. She seemed totally normal, so sweet, so pretty and healthy looking, had a good job, was smart, and just seemed together. We got married a year after meeting. I've kicked myself so many times for being so stupid and unrealistic. I loved her so much and still do. But now my love feels polluted or tarnished. We wanted kids, but decided to wait a while. I at least realized she needed to be in recovery for a longer period of time before we took that step. She got pregnant after we'd been married for about 3 years. She'd been clean for nearly 5 years, and things in our lives were going great. My career was going so well. Her life was back on track. She was doing really well and was being promoted at work. We had a dog that she doted on. We bought a new house. It was early on in her first pregnancy when I discovered she was using again. It came out that she'd started using again, shortly before getting pregnant. We separated legally and lived separately as well, with me paying for everything. She continued to use heroin for months while pregnant, but finally entered an outpatient program for pregnant women. So I'm really rambling now, sorry. She followed the instructions during the later half of her pregnancy, was under a specialist's care, had to take prescribed opiates since quitting cold turkey while pregnant can be more dangerous, but eventually got clean from everything within a few months of our child's birth. By some huge miracle, our baby was born pretty healthy, small but within normal range. She suffered from very mild neonatal abstinence syndrome, with mild symptoms that lasted a few days. It was still excruciating to watch her endure, but it could have been much worse. I had primary custody and still lived separately from her, but she had regular contact with the baby, always supervised. She did everything she was told to do, passed all the drug tests, and went to every meeting. That was 4 years ago. Initially, I didn't plan to stay married to her. I was disgusted by what she did while pregnant with our child. I'm still disgusted by it, but I don't think about it like I used to. Over the past 4 years, we have slowly repaired our relationship and marriage. Again, things have been going great. She made a huge effort. She was sticking with her recovery program and really seemed dedicated to it. She got really into whole body health, physical and mental, and seemed like the best version of herself I've known. This pregnancy wasn't planned. She's about 12 weeks pregnant with our second child. She was supposedly under birth control. I was scared. Her being pregnant again was giving me some sort of PTSD. We had the talk early on. I couldn't deal with what she put me through last time. And if she was tempted to do anything she shouldn't, or if she did it just once, please tell me. It'd be better to tell me than to hide and lie about it. It wasn't until this week that I knew something was off. There's a certain look in her eyes. Her voice changes. Her mannerisms change. Even her smell changes. I can just see the smallest signs of when she's used any amount of something. I swore I would never let myself be as oblivious as I was the first time around. She's not been nodding out or anything like that in front of me, but I just knew. She's been getting home earlier than me due to some classes she's taking for a job-related certification. I think she's using it during that gap, and it's sort of worn off by the time I get home. But the signs are still evident enough for me. I haven't woken her up. I wanted to. I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I just sat in the living room and cried. I don't know how I survived this the first time, but I don't think I'll survive it a second time. Relevant comments. Weak earnings. It's heartbreaking to think you were finally in a good place, and now this happens. Addiction is brutal and sneaky. Your feelings are valid, and it's okay to feel angry and hurt. Take care of yourself and your child first. She needs help. But you can't carry this alone. I feel so many things that I almost can't make sense of them all right now. I feel angry, hurt, betrayed, guilty, the list goes on. So her. With her previous history, and an addict-born baby already, I would contact her right now. She needs early intervention, this time before she needs daily opioids to stay stable. OP, my heart goes to you. My oldest son is an opioid addict. Everything goes well for him. I love him more than I love myself. Any parent knows what I'm talking about. But if he weren't my son, I would have turned my back a long time ago. Dealing with an addict is extremely life-draining. If I were in your shoes, I would contact her doctor immediately, take your child, and tell her she needs to go to inpatient rehab right now. Keep in contact with her. It is best for the pregnancy, but not romantically. Support her as you would a family member that you want to succeed, because you want her to. She will always be your children's mother. Don't make any decisions regarding your marriage other than to not be sexually active with her until the birth of the baby, but make all necessary arrangements in case you need to file for divorce later on. It sucks, I know it does, but life gave you these cards. Learn to play with them. Your children are your priority right now. I don't know what my full plan is yet, but she just left the house. She has an exam for the certification she's been going to classes for, so I decided not to bring anything up this morning. Plus, our daughter doesn't need to be present when I confront her. I've taken today off work because I knew mentally I wouldn't be able to concentrate. Plus, I was worried she'd pick our daughter up from daycare early before I got home. And I can't let her get high with our daughter there at home. It's still early where we are, so her doctor's office isn't open yet. Tacican tired. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I don't have much in the way of advice, but I'll be 25 years clean from heroin in a couple months. It can be done. It can be beaten. There is some hope. I wish you and your family peace and healing. Congratulations on your recovery. As I'm sure you know, statistically, your story is not typical for heroin addicts. And I'm not naive about that. I didn't think I lived in a world where I was letting myself believe. But not my wife. I guess I have been living in that world. Update. 4 days later. I posted recently about discovering my wife has relapsed on heroin. She's 12 weeks pregnant with our second baby, although this one wasn't planned. I'm having a pity party tonight, so what better to do than post here? But really, I'm not ready to share with our family and friends yet. I will not be enabling her by covering up for her. I just want to get my ducks in a row. I know I'm not really alone, but for some reason, late at night on days like this, I feel like the loneliest person in the world. My parents know that she relapsed because I told them. The day after I found my wife's drug gear hidden throughout the house, I immediately moved our 4-year-old daughter and myself to my parents' house. Yeah, I know in an ideal world she'd be locked out of our house, but it doesn't work that way when she's also legally the owner of the house. Plus, one thing I learned the first time around when I was dealing with her addiction is that I can really only control my actions and reactions. Trying to control her will only drive me crazy. So the easiest, fastest, and most stress-free way to get my daughter out of that setting was to quickly move into my parents' home. I am planning to go get a truckload of our things later this week. I've informed her family that she's relapsed, and that I've moved out of the house. They can do with that information what they want. I filed for divorce today. Luckily, I have a friend who is a lawyer, not family law, and he was able to set me up very quickly with a good family law attorney. Well, I shouldn't say it's officially filed because there are still a few paperwork steps to be done, but it's imminent and in good hands. After meeting with the attorney, I went to the car and sobbed like a baby. I admit, I cried for a good hour tonight too. I'm not usually a crier like this. I'm not ashamed to admit I've been doing a lot of it lately. Otherwise, I'm full of rage. I'm angry at her and angry at myself for giving her another chance. I'm angry because it makes me feel like a fool when she lies to me and acts as if I'm some idiot who can't clearly see all of the signs and how high she is right there in front of me. I get so mad that I have to remove myself because I don't know that I can control myself. I'm sad for her, for me, for our daughter, for this unborn baby she and her mother agreed to abort. It's really effing depressing when you're trying to convince your wife to abort your child because she's such a mess. I should have divorced her, just as I planned to do after our daughter was born. We were already legally separated for a while, and it would have been easy to just push that through to an official divorce. It's like I can't breathe. Then there's the whole issue of our daughter. Courts don't automatically strip somebody of custody because they're on drugs. She won't completely lose access to our daughter. She may even get unsupervised access to our daughter. What am I supposed to do then? I left all of her drug supplies on the table with a note for her to find when she got home, after my daughter and I had already left. Then I went over there today. I actually went to get some of my personal belongings, and she was there in the middle of the day sleeping in bed when she was supposed to be working. I lost it. Nothing physical, just my temper. I asked her how she liked my note. She was clearly high. She denied it. I found proof right there in the bathroom. She still tried to deny it. She said she doesn't have to abort our baby if she doesn't want to. So she's going to put us through this again. I told her exactly what I thought about her, and I left. I felt bad, and there's part of me that wants to help her. But emotionally, I don't think I can. I have to remove myself. I can't get sucked in again, or I won't be able to be a good dad to our daughter. And FYI, by sucked in, I mean just sucked into the emotional turmoil, the constant worrying, the taking everyone on by myself for her sake. I'm not a heroin user, have never tried the stuff, and never will. Anyway, I'm glad to have my daughter, because I feel like she's this positive light, keeping me going right now, when I really don't want to keep going. I know I'm making the right decision to divorce, but it doesn't feel good right now. I feel like my life just imploded overnight. Relevant comments. Slippery squirrel. Anger is just sadness and disappointment. It's good to cry. It gets all that pain out. I'm really sorry you're going through this, and I'm also really sorry that she's going through this. I doubt she wanted her life to turn out this way. It's too bad she has so many people that she's hurting. I'm glad you got your daughter out and that you're safe. Hopefully you don't have a problem trying to get your half of the house. If she's not working, I doubt she's going to be able to pay mortgage payments. Yeah, for legal purposes, I won't discuss my plan regarding the house as far as what I'm requesting in the divorce, but I hope it can be resolved quickly. I make all the payments on the house, but that doesn't mean much. Quizzy 1-313. As a caseworker, I urge you to go to CPS immediately. Be a walk-in and refuse to leave until you speak with a triage caseworker to help you report. Get ahead of it now because she is going to give birth to this baby addicted to drugs if she does not abort it, or if it is stillborn. There are many things that will haunt me when I die, but nothing more than the screams of a baby born addicted to drugs. Get yourself assessed as a good father in CPU's eyes, because they will be going through your life and your daughter's with a fine-tooth comb. Evidence. 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 Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.